Errol Bolo says, forget about that result. Move on. Doesn't matter. Is he right to? Or does he deserve some criticism? To answer all those questions, we have got James and Jamie back on Where Bluebirds Walk. Let's jump straight into it then. Welcome back, James. Welcome back, Jamie. Fresh back from Turf Moor, a ground that Cardiff never win at. And so it proved to be again. James, Cardiff were in that game, weren't they? Up to a point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a bit of possession, but the thing is, in these games, you've got to be clinical. Burnley were. Don't note that obviously we give away a very soft goal with the mistake from the goalkeeper, which I think is absolutely awful, to be honest. And Burnley with the Burnley goals, I think it was the last two, they were good strikes. Couldn't really do much about that, but don't help yourself when you're giving them goals.
Cheers, James. Jamie, it's a horrendous mistake from the keeper, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite funny. The last few games, the goalkeeping coach has been working on exactly that same thing in the warm-up. It's on his favoured foot. There's no excuses, lack of concentration. At a time where we probably were on top in the game. So you have that clear momentum swing. Like James said, it just gave Burnley a chance, and they were very, very clinical. They didn't need a kickstart or a heads up, but, they did.
He says move on, forget about it. James, that's easier to do, isn't it, if you haven't spent all that money travelling up there and watching your team get hammered. But does he have a point? Was this always going to be just, a throwaway game, move on?
In an aspect, yes. But in the same way, you're professional footballers. You don't don't play for the shirt in that way. There's a way to lose a game. But if you're going to go and lose, at least play with some pride in that shirt. And if you don't, then, get out that door, really.
Jamie, were there any positives for you from a player performance aspect?
I think collectively for 45 minutes, I don't think any of the players necessarily, bar the mistake from the two individual mistakes, Gutas with the second goal diving in. I thought we played really well. Speaking to a few Burnley fans after the game, for 45 minutes, they agreed we were the better side. But yeah, after that third goal went in, we did a typical Cardiff City capitulation, one after another, compounding errors, lack of leadership and shape. And like you said, does the manager deserve some criticism? Well, I think a few fans are starting to question things a lot more now. But I've had a long night, thinking of it, and we've got to move on. There's a big game coming up this weekend, or next weekend, so we've got to move on.
Okay, and let's have a look at some takes, shall we, from the game before we talk about the Jacks. Harry says, James, first half was quality, dominated the ball, created chances, just don't have a decent striker to put the ball in the net. We were unlucky to be 2 down. The second half was just abysmal. Does that probably summarise everything that we just said?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, they got a goal very early, 10 minutes in with the mistake. But, we don't matter how much you dominate the ball. That possession don't win you football matches is what you do with it ultimately counts. And it's frustrating because I know obviously we're only 2 games in still, but it's the same problem as last season at the moment, bringing all these players in, but there's still the lack of movement, the lack of finishing, and it's very frustrating.
Jamie, the next two are kind of very similar. John was very to the point, saying don't bother with any interviews, get every single person in the ATM on Sunday to watch that second half back, because losing is okay, but players clearly giving up was inexcusable. Did you see that after the third goal, that heads went down and players stopped running, stopped asking for the ball?
I mean, they ran. Don't get me wrong. They were running around, but there wasn't any sort of structure. it was too easy. I mean, you only got to look at, yes, they are great strikes. Hats off to the Burnley lads, but when the a ball is played through, literally right through the middle of your centre halves, and one of your centre halves is on the halfway line, you do ask questions about that. Yeah, I completely agree. From the third goal onwards, it wasn't excusable. There's no positives you can take from it. We were probably lucky in the end to have only conceded 5. And it's disappointing because, there's 1,100 fans who made the long trip up there yesterday. And to be fair to the vast majority of fans, we stuck with them. But again, it's hard to say it. We've got to brush it off, and we've got to somehow, regroup and get ready for a massive game.
Yeah, okay. Does it help knowing that, potentially you have just played positions 1 and 2 at the end of the season here in Burnley and Sunderland? You have, the fixture calendar has given you two tough opponents, hasn't it, James? I mean, Carabao Cup, just review that for us quickly. That was a lot better.
Yeah, a lot better. A lot of the youngsters played in that game. A lot of decent football played. Obviously, I know Sunderland are a decent side. We were a bit unlucky with that. I thought, obviously, they sort of matched us in the second half. But, I think with the Burnley sort of game, we were, never really expected to win that. But it's just, I don't mind losing football games, but I just want to be competitive in losing the football games, and 5-0 is not being competitive.
Yeah. Okay, let's have a chat then, shall we, about the the next game. All right, I'm going to come straight out and ask you both, why do Cardiff have such a rotten record away at Swansea? Jamie.
We say it sounds daft, but it's Swansea's big day at home. As it should be for any derby. They fill out the stadium. They make it quite compact. They make it an intimidating atmosphere, and I just don't think our players can deal with it. They've had in recent years, we've seen Callum Robertson get sent off. Whether it was sending off or not, he still got sent off. And we always question our players' mentalities. Do they know what it really means for us fans? It's a bubble trip. We have to leave 4 hours before a game for something that's only half an hour away. We get, all those things that go with it to see us lose. And I don't think we've actually scored up there since, is it Aidan Flint scored in the COVID season? So again, stats don't lie. We haven't turned up there, and we know it because we get reminded of it every single time.
Just on the bubble trip, James, there was a report, I think, by a Cardiff City fan group who wrote to Swansea and South Wales Police this time round and asked whether or not this could stop being a bubble trip and actually, build up the numbers slowly. Now, what we understand, Swansea said no, and South Wales Police just nodded along with that. This is the only bubble trip left in the whole country. Not even Celtic and Rangers have bubble trips. First of all, why is it that this fixture is still wrapped up in this bubble, and is it needed from your experience of going to this game?
So I think it's just one of the things that have just always remained. It's always been obviously a very heated derby, as every other derby is really. I mean, on the actual fixture being a bubble, I can see why it should be a bubble, but I can also see why it shouldn't be a bubble. Obviously, with the fans wanting to travel, on the coach and everything, and getting the coaches in, it's not really much of a difference. Obviously, leaving a few hours before is a bit frustrating. Obviously, we got fans that travel from different parts of the country as well, so they're having to go down to the Cardiff City and sort of go there and then get to the stadium and then go back. So it's making their whole day a lot double the time that they need really for their sort of traveling. And yeah, but also as well on the trains, you've got the sort of in between sort of, Bridgend going into Swansea, we'll have sort of a mixture of sort of Cardiff, Swansea on the train station. So I think, the South Wales Police, not sure if they would be able to deal with that.
Okay. Jamie, Should this fixture still be a bubble fixture?
I'd personally love it not to be. In my opinion, yes, every derby is passionate, but there are many, many other derbies in the UK, and for us to only be the only derby, yes, there are reasons 2 and 4, like every argument, but again, how are you going to know how fans are going to behave if you don't try it? So again, it kind of feels like I think some certain Swansea fans would like to have it lifted as well. But can I see it ever being lifted? To be honest with you, I don't think so.
Okay. What about the game itself then? Changes need to be made to the starting 11 for you, James. What are they?
Definitely. So definitely bring in Alex Robertson from the start. Definitely. Callum O'Dowda needs to be playing sort of on the wing if possible. Mate is another player I like. Obviously, a lot of fans don't really like him too much, but I think that he does always offer a presence on the pitch, and those are the players you need in the games like this. Obviously, last season we started at the sort of Swansea Stadium very slow. They were on us straight away, and we could have been 2-0 down within 5 minutes, and that's no lie at all. They were all over us from the minute, and we can't let that happen this year, because I think that they will punish us again.
Jamie, how do you see it going?
I try and look at it optimistically, but if we continue to have lapses of concentration and errors, they will pick us off. It hurts me to say it about Swansea's qualities, but they've shown us how to play at their place. They've got some very, very good technical players. James has hit the nail on the head in regards to the changes. We're looking very leggy in midfield. We picked up injuries yesterday up in Burnley, and if we don't win that midfield battle up in Swansea, it's gonna be a very long afternoon.
Okay. Part of that decision that he's going to have to make is around defenders. You're leaking far too many goals. I want to ask you about your central defenders and your best pairing this far. We'll talk about Mark McGuinness in a second, because left out potentially because of Luton being interested. So let's imagine for a second that he does leave. Where does that leave you with centre backs, James?
So obviously Gutdas will be starting definitely. Callum Chambers, I think he sort of picked up a knock yesterday. There are reports that we are very close to a deal to centre back for around 3 million from the Belgian league. I think his name's Dalman, I think it is, or something like that. So it'd be interesting to see sort of how quickly that happens, especially with the Chambers injury. Yeah, I mean, we haven't got that many options at centre back, really. I mean, obviously Sasonda's out for quite a few months, and Fagan Walcott hasn't played a lot of first team football.
Jamie, what's your view on Mark McGuinness and all the speculation around that?
I think it's got to be sorted. There's been speculation, for a number of weeks now. At the end of the day, if the price is right, he goes. If teams aren't offering what we value him at, then move on. Say he's not for sale. Do something. He was left out of the squad yesterday. Bullet was quite dismissive of it. To be honest with you, we've all kind of gone between that £7 and £10 million bracket. Yes, Arsenal will have a percentage of that because that was part of the deal when we got him in. But if you look at it from a business perspective, when you sign him for free or for compensation, that was probably the only good thing that Mick McCarthy did was bring him in. So it's business at the end of the day, and if that frees up funds for us to purchase other players in different areas, which we need, then I'm all for it.
Okay, all right then. And finally, then, what's the best centre back pairing that you've ever seen play for Cardiff together? Jamie?
Oh, that's tough. To be honest, I think from one of our successful seasons, I'm just going to say as a recent one, I loved seeing Sol Bamba and Sean Morrison. Both are fantastic servants for the club. Promotion as well, and just genuinely great guys, and did a lot for the club. So yeah, I'm going to say Sol Bamba and Sean Morrison.
Okay. I remember watching Danny Gabardon and James Collins, wasn't it? I think in the very early 2000s. So I think it was just immense at the back there. You, James, we just lost you there for a second. But the question was about the best central defence pairing for Cardiff.
Yeah. So again,
to that discussion.
I'd agree with Jamie there. Bamber and Morrison, especially that promotion season. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. Right. Good luck against Swansea. Is this the year Cardiff can do the double?
I'm not saying anything.
Stop that chant.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything.
Because every time you do win at their place, you then go and don't do the business at yours. So no predictions. Not asking for predictions this time round. It's too raw, isn't it? But we will see you back here next week, where hopefully you've picked up your first point or points of the season. If you're a Cardiff fan, please do subscribe to the channel. It's a brand new Cardiff channel. We know there's quite a few around, but this is the fastest and most passionate review of all things Cardiff you'll find on the internet. And we will see you next week as we head into the international break. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, James.